Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this is hashtag baseball only show. JML here, Frank over there, Fire Frank 914. It's where you can find them. We've talked a lot on this show about the struggles of a lot of teams with high expectations. One of them being our personal favorite team, the Yankees. I think I'm just going to start off the show with I'm not going to show them because we got some other text that you may or may not want to see in between. But I'm going to break down our text conversation last night. We are recording on Thursday, so this is the day after the Yankees game against Tampa.
Yeah.
Obviously, they had a rain delay, so the game was dry. It was a very long game. I got a message from Frank at 11:51 Eastern time. This season is over. Someone needs to be fired. My response: Cash needs to go. Frank says, "How do you come back from something like this?" My response: He made the wrong moves at the deadline and didn't make the right call-ups. Then we got a holy shit because Donaldson hits a walk-off grand slam winning the game. My response is, wow, he needed that. We needed that. Your response, to say the least, biggest hit of the season. So all of this within, I don't know, 10, 15-minute interval.
Yeah.
It's crazy how they looked absolutely lifeless this entire series, but yet essentially stole that game last night. Now, I've made a lot out of this. I still don't think the runner on second in extra innings, I hate that rule. I get why they made that a rule, is they don't want to drag out games, but for some reason the runner being on second has made these extra inning games get more runs, and it put them in the position to get this grand slam. Donaldson, who's he struggled all year. He's hitting 223, 12 homers, 47 RBIs. Clearly, he's on the down slope of his career. Aaron Hicks has looked brutal. I've said this the whole year.
Yeah.
Look, he should not be playing center field. He looks lost out there. I don't know what it is. Even when he's in left field, he looks lost. Like he forgot how to play the outfield. I can't understand it. I really hope that Harrison Bader can make his way onto this team, because we cannot have Aaron Judge play center field. If Aaron Judge has to play center field the rest of the year because Aaron Hicks is that inept, you can literally count the chances of the Yankees advancing the postseason to 0%. Frank, let's discuss. I know that was a lot, to go over during this intro, but
I think it's important because this, unlike most sports, it's like a sport where you can literally. I'll try to give it an analogy. It's almost like being down by a couple touchdowns and somehow miraculously scoring a couple to win it or something like that. Because like baseball, literally, like you said, within 15 minutes, they went from, they almost get out of the inning. They get a bases clearing double, 7-4. They get that run around second, but it's not the best part of the lineup coming up per se.
Yeah, Judge was on second to start the inning.
Judge was on second, yeah. And then
Glaber hits a little chop shot.
A single, and he doesn't score. Okay, all right. Rizzo works a walk, and then you're like, okay, you're still not, Basically, at that point, I'm like, just don't hit into a double play, man. Put the ball in play, please. But don't hit into a double play. Get a single, please. At least give us 2 runs here. Give us a chance to tie this up. And then 0-1 pitch, and it's just, and I'm like, no. I was literally in disbelief. No way that's going out. he did the bat flip, so he knew. But
It was a no doubter.
It was a no doubt Port's job, essentially, if we want to call it that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just I heard I don't know. We'll see. Obviously, there's a long way to go here. They've got an important 4 games up with Toronto now, up by 10 on each of them in Tampa. So very important to try to win a series after losing 5 in a row, which is ridiculous.
And this is the lineup they have going tonight.
So we got Berrios
pitching, who
the Yankees have handled pretty well this year so far.
Well, I think it seems like a lot of
people have. A lot of people have. The re-signing him hasn't worked out.
Man, you talk about they paid a high price of prospects to get him, including
them too, right?
Including Austin Martin, who was one of their first round pick in either 2020 or 2019.
Yeah.
A 5.61 ERA. This guy's supposed to be your ace pitcher. Definitely not there. Then we have Montas, who after his first start, his second start was better, but it's still not what we expected. Especially when you trade Jordan Montgomery, and he's looked pretty solid for the Cardinals. But again, as I've said, I don't want to go back to Jordan Montgomery would not start in the postseason. So they had to make the move. It was a necessity to go out and get an outfielder. I would have liked for them to get a healthy outfielder because there's a shot that Bader doesn't even play at all this year, and that plan just backfires on them. So hopefully the Yankees did their due diligence and really truly believe that they can get Bader back with at least a couple weeks to go. So he can be in the lineup for them, because let's look at the lineup today. They called up Osvaldo Cabrera for he's playing short tonight. He played third yesterday, right? Didn't Cabrera play third or IKF?
Yeah, no, you're right. He did.
So already they call a kid up who's played he's played shortstop all year in the minors. His first game in the major leagues, you play him at third base.
Or maybe he wasn't sure. I got to double check that.
Nah, I know
IKF was in the game last night, so yeah.
IKF was at short.
I know he was in the game because he got pinch hit for by Hicks in the 9th inning for reasons unknown.
Wouldn't it make more sense to have IKF not in the lineup?
Yeah, in that spot, yeah. I mean, or considering I know IKF was a Gold Glove at third base, maybe you could try to see how he looks at third base.
That would be admitting that they screwed up, so they would not do that.
But I mean, I understand that Cabrera, the reason why he's been favored among the other people they were talking about calling up is because he's played different spots in the infield and the outfield. So I understand maybe that's why they thought, okay, we're calling this guy up instead of Peraza, who only plays short. Yeah, and they, like you just said, they refuse to admit that they made a mistake. But
yeah, and it's a mistake because IKF is he's lucky just to get a single. He's a singles hitter.
Which would be fine if he could, played that defense tightly, but he hasn't. So it's not, like this dramatic improvement of what we were dealing with Glaber at short last year.
It would be okay if we didn't have Aaron Hicks struggling, Josh Donaldson who's struggling,
right?
A Stanton out with injury, and this, and eventually the shoe's got to fall off on Jose Trevino. He's been playing way over his head offensively. They call up Estevan Florial, who I'm just gonna be honest here. The Yankees don't really believe in him. If they believed in him, he would have been playing 3 months ago.
No, it seems to me they just called him up because he's been up here before, and
he's on the 40-man. They didn't want to add anyone.
Yeah, they don't want to add anyone. They don't want to start clocks of anyone either. That's always a concern, as we know.
They started Cabrera's clock, obviously. Well, actually,
Well, I know it's not official. It won't be a full year of service.
Yeah, it won't be a full year because they called them up on the 17th, which
So
was the end
they'll
of
still
the
get that
clock.
extra year, right? So they still have the extra the full years then, right?
Yeah.
Not mistaken. Yeah.
And obviously you're not going to call up Volpe. He's in double A. Even though Atlanta has called up 2 double A players straight to the majors and they've both done well. So far to the fact that Michael Harris has already got an 8-year deal from the Braves.
Yeah.
Locked him up past arbitration. And it's funny because Atlanta, their farm system's not as good as the Yankees, but the diamonds that they do have, they immediately get them up, especially if they have a need. Like, oh, our outfield is struggling this year. We have injuries in our outfield. Cool. Who's our best out? Oh, Michael Harris, you're up.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to also call up Grissom for second base because Albies has been hurt. Boom. There we go.
Plus, we're locking up players young at cheap, at cost-effective contracts. I mean,
yeah. And the problem is the Yankees, they don't want to start people's clocks, but then by the time they call someone up,
it's too late.
You know, you call up Judge, like Judge is going to be 30. So then the argument is, oh, do we give Judge a long contract? Because we know most players over 35, case in point, like a Josh Donaldson, their stats are going to go down. The law of averages. Very rarely do you have players that perform as well as they did in their, late 20s, early 30s.
Yeah, especially after we touched on the last episode about we were talking about the performance enhancing situation. Without like a lot, as we talked about that episode about recovery, and the older you get, this is becoming increasingly a younger man's game.
Yep.
So
it is very interesting. Give me 1 second here.
Judge, as an example, he did go to college, so he excused going right from high school. But even so, like I think it even took him a couple of years to come up, and he probably was ready maybe a year, maybe even half before that. But they waited. But him and Sanchez that year.
Yep.
But I got to give props to the Braves for taking chances like this. These guys are producing. The Mets just called up one of their prospects, and he immediately produced.
Yeah, they called up Brett Batty.
Immediately hits a home run his first at bat, much like Judge.
Yep, hit a homer his first at bat.
That's pretty cool. His family.
You have the Yankees have the talent. It's just they wait too long on some of these guys, and I think for them too is that they start to lose their confidence or they get frustrated and they're like, man, I'm because we're so connected to the world as a society, like, and we have all this information. These players know where they're ranked. They know they're a top 3 prospect, top 5 prospect. They see their estimated timeline of when they should reach the major leagues. And when they're not being called up, that has to do a little something to their psyche.
Yeah, you would think so, right? And unfortunately, the Yankees have this knack for just waiting too long or calling them up maybe and just misusing them to the point where they lose all their value for the team and trade value wise. We talked about it several times already.
So the real discussion, and it was part of my text to you. At a certain point, Cashman has to go. As much good as he's done in the past, there's also a lot of head scratching moves that the ownership has allowed him to do as well.
Yeah.
This deadline, for one, you go out, you make the moves that you make. They didn't necessarily have to go and get Montas.
No.
I think that was an overreach because Seattle went and got a pitcher. They didn't have. They could have kept Tyone. They probably could have traded for Bader and not had to trade Montgomery.
Yeah.
because what it seems to me is the Yankees were so confident in their staff and Domingo Herman because they didn't touch Domingo Herman at all.
Mhm.
They could have rolled out with Herman, Montgomery, and they could have took them into the postseason.
Yeah, I mean, so far it's kind of a wash. I know Montgomery's looked good so far. I think we talked in the past though that moving him was a good idea. Maybe it's going to be debated whether or not this was the move to make, but I'm not. I mean, I like Jordan, but I'm not the biggest fan. I'm seeing a lot of people are making it. Might be reacting a little too over dramatic about him being gone. But as you just said, they didn't actually have to make the move because they essentially just traded for a similar pitcher. I get if you look at his numbers wise.
Yep.
And
he
yeah,
came in.
if you really wanted Castillo, you should have got it done.
They should have got it done for Castillo.
You could have, and it wouldn't have taken like ridiculous amounts. They just were refusing to budge from Volpe or Peraza.
Because if Osvaldo Cabrera was the future,
yeah,
he would have been playing shortstop to start the year. They wouldn't have traded to get IKF. And so
even with him being up right now, they don't plan on him being a full-term solution unless he catches fire.
Yeah,
pardon the pun.
It literally, to me, they need to. If the Yankees don't advance in the playoffs, they need to consider moving on from Cashman.
Yeah, and I see a lot of people, they're mad at the manager, they're mad at the ownership, but sometimes you're just going to make a change. Yes, I know, the Steinbrenner make the final call on the moves they got to make and all that, but I think you're right. Cashman does get a lot of leeway because he's been with the organization so long. They trust him. And for every crazy ninja move he's made a couple of head scratchers that have damaged the team.
Yep.
So
that was their father's, boy, obviously. George gave Cash a shot at such a young age and rolled with him.
Yeah.
And I know that there's the loyalty there, but for the Yankees to not have advanced to a World Series in 12 years, it's crazy because it's not like we've always had a top 3 payroll in the league. And for the last 6 or 7 years, we've had at least a top 10 minor league system, because it always used to say, oh, we have to go out and get free agents because our minor league system is really not that great. Now you have a minor league system. You're not really taking advantage of it. The last time you took advantage of it, you called everyone up all at once. And it worked in the short term, but you didn't have the right manager. Then you go and you fire Girardi and get Boone, who's more of a today analytics manager, players manager, whatever you want to call it. And that hasn't worked out. It really hasn't.
No. And like we said, coming off 6 years ago when they remade the team on the fly, when they sort of rebuilt but didn't, and they added more to their farm system, called people up, and then it produced one win away from a World Series. And when we back then, me and you were like, well, we blew it this year, but we'll get back there next year or in the next year or so. And they haven't. They've actually not gotten even closer than one win away from a pennant. So yeah, that's right. And that's tough to do considering the payroll, considering the talent they have. Even we can talk about the mistakes they made when constructing a team, but still, you would have thought by accident they might have had a shot at least going to a World Series.
They've mismanaged injuries.
Oh yeah,
they've mismanaged. In free agency, they're also a team that's been gun shy to outbid other teams when they don't deem it an 100% need.
Yeah, outside of Cole, like you said, or the trade for Stanton, which just kind of fell in their laps. But it's just, sometimes you got to make a change, and it has to start at the top. Sometimes
George Sr. would have never allowed the Mets to go out and outbid the Yankees on
No.
Scherzer.
No
That would have never happened.
If this was we're talking even like 2000, mid 2000s, George, when he was getting a little older, but he would not have allowed that. No, you're right. For all his faults and mistakes he made, when it came to that, he would not have allowed them to come in
And
there
the
and
only
spend more money than
reason,
him.
and I truly believe this, all right, and this is my theory, in 2009, why the Yankees went out and spent all that money was because the kids knew that their father wasn't doing that great, and they wanted to get him one last World Series before he passed away. And that's exactly what they did. They went out, they got Swisher, they got AJ Burnett, they got CC Sabathia, and then by the grace of the baseball gods, we got Mark Teixeira because we weren't projected to get Mark Teixeira. We had already got Swisher. So they spent $400+ million that offseason
to win the series, and they did.
And they did.
That's all they got.
And that's all they got. Exactly. And ever since then, since George Sr. passed, they have operated like a mid-level team.
Yeah.
Oh, we got to shed this salary, we shed this salary, and then we will take that salary to pay this player.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a 2-for-1 special.
Yeah. Wouldn't spend the money, and they wouldn't make, like you said, talk about making the proper moves at the deadline. I don't think they've done the proper moves at the deadline at all in the last while. We can argue on some of these middle moves, but they have not gone for it like a lot of teams have done. Also, the just some of the moves they made, like you said, the free agent signings were made with ideas of we'll get rid of this guy, and then we're going to use this guy for this role. It's frustrating.
The problem is they think they're too smart for their own, and they're becoming too smart for their own good. Oh, the analytics showed this. This shows this.
They're trying to be the Rays when they don't have to be the Rays.
They don't have to be the Rays.
They don't have to be anybody. Look like we talked about the Mets. Look what Cohen said. Oh, I'm just going to spend more money. And today I think it came out. He said, you know what? If I got to spend $350 million next year, I'll do it.
The perfect example is, and I keep going back to this. George Sr. was around. This trade deadline came up, and you presented him with, we can get Luis Castillo. This is what it's going to cost. We can get Frankie Montas. This is what it's going to cost. We won't have to give up a Volpe to get Montas, but we would have to give up Volpe to get Castillo. What do you think George would say? George would say, which pitcher is going to pitch game 1 or 2 in the World Series for me?
Yeah.
Oh, Castillo.
Get him.
Then what is it going to cost? Oh, it's going to cost your number 1 prospect. Okay. Want me to drive him to the airport? Because I'll personally drive him to the airport.
I mean, you could make an argument that George would have tried to figure out a way to sign Castillo to trade for Castillo and Juan Soto and Montas if he felt like it.
Yes.
He was not afraid to trade prospects ever when he was.
And again, that's not always the smart idea.
No.
But if you look at, and we said this before on the show, the Yankees' time when to win the World Series legitimately is this year.
Yeah.
If they don't win it this year,
it was very difficult next year.
They're going to have to rebuild. Okay? There's going to be a rebuilding process. And that's why I think in the back of their mind, the Yankees brass knows this too. That's why they didn't want to trade all these prospects, because they know next year what they're gonna spin to the fans. And I see this coming. I see this coming. And I came to this realization yesterday. This is what's going to happen. The Yankees are going to lose in the playoffs. Whether they advance or not, they're going to lose at some point in the playoffs. They're not going to make the World Series. My mind right now, this team doesn't make the World Series.
Yeah, me either, man.
They're going to go, well, we didn't make the World Series with Judge. Judge is going to walk. He's going to sign with whatever team is going to throw him the most amount of money, because the Yankees will make an offer that they know that he's not going to take, but they'll say, "Oh, well, very similar to the Cano situation. Same thing with Judge. Well, we offered him the most amount of money per year, but some other teams are going to offer him more years and more stability." It's exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Then they're going to roll out, "Hey, remember that guy, Volpe? He's going to be your starting shortstop. Oh, you know Jason Dominguez? He's going to be in the outfield." And they're going to roll out this whole new youth movement team with Rizzo and Stanton. Rizzo be on his last year. They'll DFA Donaldson. They'll figure out a way to eat that money. They'll have LeMahieu.
Yeah.
But they'll call up all the youngsters. You'll probably get Austin Wells at catcher.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll go, "Come see our young, exciting team this year at Yankee Stadium." And that's what's going to happen. And then they will go to next season when that plan doesn't work like it didn't in 2008 when they rolled out with a young pitching staff.
Exactly.
They're going to have to go out and spend the money again.
We'll go through the cycle all over again.
That's exactly what's going to happen. We'll mark it down, clip it. I will tell you this.
And I'll add to that, they'll go out to spend the money and they'll make the wrong decisions again. As we talked about Cano, they decided, okay, Cano, we're not signing Cano. Okay, we're going to give that money to Jacoby Ellsbury, Carlos Beltran, Brian McCann.
Yeah, it's a disaster to think if they would have signed Scherzer in the offseason, none of this would have happened. They wouldn't have to go out and get a Montas or a Castillo. They could have kept every single prospect that they wanted to keep. You're in a win now mode. He wants to win, and he also wants the money. Could have just given him money.
Yeah, that's all it's taking. More money up front. You can argue that maybe the Mets would get into a bidding war, then whatever it takes.
It's a 3-year deal. He's still going to pitch decently over the next couple of years. He's going to regress at some point, but man, we've made worse contracts before.
Yeah.
I mean, we paid Jacoby Ellsbury a whole ton of money, and he did nothing. So for them to just sit idly by, make minor moves, like I like the Benintendi move. He's not going to move the needle. And it's not the person who that's going to win you a World Series. He's part of a World Series winning team.
Yeah. He complements.
He's a complementary piece. This Yankee team, if they don't get Stanton back, because it seems like they're just going to let Stanton sit out until September, and then hopefully he gets some at-bats, and then we go into the postseason with them. But
which you've seen before.
They hold these guys out too long too. And they get rusty, and then they don't perform.
It's this cocky attitude. Okay, we can rest this guy in September, then we're gonna, just like with Severino. Okay, we're gonna rest him, and then he's gonna go out and be fine and healthy and refreshed. It's a big gamble. And I think today there was some word Boone was saying, something about Stanton playing in rehab games this weekend. I'll believe it when I see it. I mean, the man looked pretty fine dancing around after the walk-off last night. I'll say that.
Look.
But this unfortunately, see this lead that they built up early in the season, this padding, this cushion,
was the worst thing that could have happened to this team.
Yeah, they've gotten complacent. If they had started off the season like they're playing now, and then had to play from behind, much like lately has happened, they would be a little bit more urgency in the month of August. I can tell you that, guys.
So 73-45, they're 10 games up on Tampa and Toronto, respectively. They play 4 against Toronto. Right?
Yes.
If they lose all 4, then it's a 6-game lead. I mean,
yeah, and it's not unfeasible to say that they could lose all 4 because we've seen lately.
They have struggled offensively.
I mean, they went from, like I said, the best record until not only the second best in the American League, they're only like a half game ahead of the Braves, who are a second place team in the National League East.
Yeah, you have, as we said previously on the show, we have Clay Holmes with the phantom injury.
Oh yeah, we called that for sure. Yep.
And then Chapman, who was pitching well, couldn't figure his stuff out yesterday again. So we're in that conundrum.
We'll always be in that conundrum. I do always think bringing Chapman in the middle of an inning or an inning where there's a runaround never works.
We went out and we got one reliever at the trade deadline.
Well, two technically. One who's actually useful, it seems like.
Oh yeah, Trevino was.
Yeah. Efros has looked good. I mean, he had one bad game, but he looked good yesterday again. Marinaccio, they finally called back up. He was down for 2 weeks for no reason.
Why didn't we get David Robertson?
I don't know. That's because what did the Phillies give up to get him?
Not much. They gave up their a catching prospect or something like that.
So it's like they chose, instead of the short-term solution, they we'll get this guy that's got 5 years of control. Here we go again with the control. The cost control players. We're not the Rays.
No. I honestly think the Steinbrenners don't have as much money as we think that they have. They should consider selling this team.
Oh yeah.
If you put the Yankees on the block, you're probably getting $8 to $12 billion for the Yankees, at least.
You can't tell me there's not some guy out there with a lot of money that would love to have his hands on this franchise.
Ridiculous. So we're operating like we don't make enough money as a franchise alone to cover the cost of these players.
Yeah. And this is coming from, like you said, the team worth how many $1 billion? But yet that's not necessarily how much money they have to spend. It's about profits too. They look at this stuff. And it's funny to say, considering anyone that knows that they go down to Yankee Stadium, you're spending $18 on a beer. You got no money.
And hats off to the Cleveland Guardians, who are in first place.
I think you called this on one of our early episodes.
They get zero support from ownership. They have the lowest payroll in baseball, and they're in first place. They're 63-55. They're a game over Minnesota. The White Sox will be 3.5 behind after getting shellacked by the Astros today. I think it was 21-5 the last time I checked the score. I mean, Cleveland continues to win. The manager, the staff, they just do a great job. They do a great job. You have Houston. Let me pull it back up. Houston in first place. Seattle pretty much is going to be supplanted as a wild card team. We'll pull up the wild card standings.
Yeah.
Your 3 division leaders, your 3 wild card teams, Minnesota, Baltimore. I would say Minnesota and Baltimore are still in the thick of it.
Yeah.
I'm not a believer in the White Sox or Boston. Texas obviously fired Woodward recently. So he's gone. Then in the National League, you got the Dodgers, the Mets, and the Cardinals. With the wild card teams, Atlanta, Philly, San Diego, and Milwaukee is the only one that's viable to break into that wild card spot.
I would say that's not 100% settled yet with San Diego, the way they've struggled.
No. Yeah, I would agree. And for that matter, I mean, Philly.
Yeah. Philly's
could take. I mean, Atlanta's going to make the postseason. Whether they end up in first place remains to be seen.
It's pretty safe to say, the Atlanta and the Mets are going to be in the playoffs, and the Dodgers, obviously.
Dodgers, the Cardinals
I think, are pretty safe.
Albert Pujols hit a pinch hit grand slam today. Shout out to him. 690 career home runs. Obviously, he's going to be retiring at the end of the season. Unfortunately, he's not going to finish with 700 unless he goes on a real tear or they somehow just get him enough at bats.
Still, I mean,
it's tremendous.
What a career!
Tremendous.
The fact he gets to finish it off back where it started is a wonderful thing.
Yeah. Anything noteworthy that you wanted to talk about?
Let's see. I did have some ideas before. I know we talked about. Let's see. We talked about the Mets. We talked about the Cubs. Well, I can't really think of anything.
Did you watch the Jeter documentary yet?
Still haven't. I know I'm slacking, guys. I never know when it's on. I went to record it once. It didn't record it. I'm just waiting. I'm hoping is it up on any kind of streaming service soon?
It's on ESPN Plus.
Okay. I definitely got to catch it. I'm hearing all about it, and I'm kind of sad that I'm missing out. How about you? You catching up on it?
For those that haven't watched it, it was really well done. You got into the mind of Derek Jeter for the first time. And what's funny is, coincidentally enough, if you've watched the Man in the Arena, which was the Tom Brady documentary, and you watched The Last Dance, which essentially they say is the last year of the Chicago Bulls documentary, but it's really a Michael Jordan documentary. There's commonality between the three athletes. They have a small circle. They only trust certain people. And they would do whatever it takes to win, and they're all about winning. And that was for all three of them. And I didn't know how close that Jeter is to Michael Jordan. They are really close. Like, they hang out. He's not just a athlete that was on the Jordan brand. They vacation together. They do stuff together. Gerald Williams, unfortunately, he recently passed away. That was Jeter's closest friend. So you got a glimpse into his life. Even his wife Hannah was in the documentary, and she had some monologue and she was interviewed for the documentary. You had A-Rod, Michael Kay, Cashman. And Jeter and Cashman, man, they did not get along. I did not know how much they didn't get along, but man, he did not like Cashman for a very long time. But yeah, if you guys haven't, go on ESPN Plus, check out that documentary. It's a must watch. Even if you're not a baseball fan and you're watching this show to learn about baseball, watch that Jeter documentary because it really goes over a period of time where the Yankees were a really dominant team and what it took for those teams to be dominant, the inner workings of the teams, and just the inner workings of a dude that won 5 World Series championships within his first, we won 4 within his first 5 or 6 years in baseball.
Yeah.
And then waited another 9 years to get the 5th one. And then his comeback, because he almost had a career-ending injury. Then he came back and essentially played his final year. And you'll get his commentary about that and what it took to play his final year and his thoughts on that. I don't want to spoil it, but go and check it out. It's a must-watch.
I would probably, I definitely got to check it out. I think it's kind of cool just getting to see more from him opening up. He's now on social media. He's being more seen. He was obviously we talked about the other night off air, the K-Rod cast the other day, which was quite interesting in its own right, if you've seen the clips.
Yep.
It's just, I guess the more you understand about him, then the more you get why he is like he is.
There's a lot of good that can come out of Jeter being more out there. He is a transcendent player, whether you like him or not. There's so many people that think he's overrated, and that's your opinion. But the one thing that I will say is he had a heart of a champion, and it really shows through this documentary. Um, it's very much like the Jordan doc and the Brady doc, and even the clips that you see about Kobe and the Kobe interviews.
Mm-hmm.
For to be a champion and be a peak performer and be in the limelight, these guys all have similar DNA and similar thought process on what it takes to be great. Um,
Be top of their games too, yeah. Top of their sports.
yep.
It's just, yeah.
Yeah, so definitely check it out. We're going to wrap this show up. Thank you so much to everyone. We are over 500 subscribers.
Thank you.
Pretty crazy. Not a lot of channels that, I mean, today's the 2-month anniversary of content actually appearing on this channel. So for us to have over 500 subs in such a short span is pretty remarkable, and I feel blessed about it, and it's really awesome. Continue to like, share, you guys should already be subscribed if you're watching this. If not, just hit the subscribe button. Frank, any words to the audience?
Again, thanks as always. Thanks for your support. There's a lot of channels you can watch, a lot of podcasts you can listen to. I say it again, as I always say, thank you for taking time out of your week to listen to us and to comment and to share and to like.
Yeah.
Personal shout out.
Comment below if you
for the
watched the Jordan documentary the Jeter doc.
Yeah, please tell us your thoughts.
Yeah, let us know your thoughts. I know this is a Yankee centric show today, but I mean, honestly, most of the sports world is talking about the same thing with the Yankees.
Yeah.
Our next show we'll talk about some other teams. Thank you so much for subscribing. We appreciate it. As before we sign off, also check out our wrestling content, Weekly Verdict, Look Back in Times, the pre-show break, hosting that I do as well. Good night and good luck. See you later. Peace.